There we go. So I'm going to pour myself a little bit of this Don Papa rum because you said you're more of a rum guy.
There you go. There you
And if
go.
you were here, I would pour you one. It's quite good. I think it's out of the Philippines, actually.
Is it? Is it? And it's obviously a dark rum, so that out of the Philippines, huh? They got
And
good
you
rum
just,
in the
yeah, it's out of
Philippines?
the Philippines.
No kidding.
So it's very tasty. I've had it before. There we go. So Jeff, welcome to the pub. I wish you were here, but I'm sure Florida's a lot warmer than Calgary right now.
Well, thank you, Sean. Well, it's not. You guys are sending some of that Arctic air down this way, though. That's the problem. I think last night here it got into the high 30s, Sean. Believe it or not.
Oh wow! And
Yeah.
I think we're in the high 30s today, maybe even the low 40s.
Yeah, so the difference between you and you're in Alberta, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, in Tampa is when it's 38, you guys wear tank tops, and when it's 38 down here, we wear winter jackets. That's the only difference.
Yeah, I remember that as a kid when my parents took us on a vacation to Southern California and we were in our bathing suits swimming in the ocean and people are walking on the beach with their fur coats.
Sean, I when I say that to people, I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, so I know a little bit about snow and cold weather, nothing like you do. But yeah, you can always. We've been in Florida now for my wife and I and daughter for 30 years now, and you can always tell the people, no matter where you're at, if you're at a resort and the casino, whatever, wherever you're at, and you see people swimming in the pool and it's 65 degrees, it's like I know those people are either from Canada or somewhere from up north.
Yep.
You only
Yep.
swim in the water when it's in the 90s, not when it's in the 60s.
Well, I remember my son went to university down there at Ave Maria University, and
Great place, great
we were
place.
we were down there for Thanksgiving one year. It's raining, and we went swimming in the Gulf there, and we were pretty much the only people. And
Now I heard it's going to get a name change, not the Gulf of Mexico. It's going to be the Gulf of America. So we'll see how that goes down, huh?
oh, okay.
Sure, sure.
So, for those that don't know Jeff, who is Jeff Joaquin?
Yeah, Sean, born and raised September 8th, 1969 in Dartmouth, Massachusetts. I grew up in a good Catholic Christian family. Have an older brother, 5 years older than me. Lived a perfect lifestyle. No issues, no problems, no abuse, no anything. But somehow I figured a way of getting into alcohol and drugs and really kind of made a mess of it in high school and college, Sean, to be honest with you. And even though somehow, some way, I figured out how to still stay in pretty good shape and play football and yeah, so it really good family, really good background. I kind of did the prodigal son thing when I was younger. You know what I mean? And I never realized, Sean, to be honest with you, and we can get into some detail, but I mean, I really started drinking alcohol at the age of 9 years old.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I repeat, 9 years old. My grandfather came into we were at a birthday celebration at my mom's house in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and he walked down the hallway and he had a little shot of brandy, Sean, in his hand, and it's customary in Portuguese and French backgrounds, of which I have both, to have alcohol when you're younger. I just took a sip of that brandy, Sean, at 9, and I knew I was going to have troubles with alcohol. So born and raised in a great family, but somehow I turned into a prodigal son, and I think as I reflect back, Sean, um, at all the mistakes that I made in my youth, they're very painful when they happen, right? But a collection of all those mistakes is what's later known as experience, and that's why now it's amazing to me how I get to travel the country and tell people about all these problems I had when I was a kid, and it gives them hope, and it gives them inspiration to come out of the darkness of their problems and into the light of Christ's mercy. So it's amazing how God, he takes all the mess and he turns it into a message.
Yeah, and I've heard your story on a couple different talks that you've done, and it's an incredible story. But your overall message is that the prodigal son does get welcomed back.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. And Sean, the first year or two as I traveled around telling my story, it really, a lot of people get confused, and I've done documentaries and whatnot. It's really, it's not my story. It's God's story of mercy. You know what I mean? And now, after having traveled around so much, now it's people's responses to God's mercy in my life. And that's where God can really take a broken, wounded vessel, and he can give other people hope through that. And yeah, the prodigal son, remember what he says when he's in the pigsty. He says, and he's literally wishing to eat that which what the pigs were eating. And he says to himself, he says, I know what I'll do. I'll return to my father, and I'll tell him, Father, I don't deserve to be your son any longer, but just treat me as one of your servants. And that's what, especially men, Sean, we don't get, that Jesus is there for us in our brokenness, in our darkness of life. And he wants to set us free from our captivity. But men, Sean, we would rather, I say this all the time, it's almost like men treat the entire year as if every day is Halloween, right? We wake up in the morning, we put this costume on, we put a mask on, we put a costume on, and we try to be somebody that we're not, because we don't want anybody to know what's going on inside, whether that's drugs. And I know you were in law enforcement for decades. When you take off that costume or you peel back that onion, it's amazing what men will share with you, what they're struggling with, and if you keep it down inside, it's going to grow like a cancer. But if you share it with other men, especially those in a Christian accountability group, Catholic Christian accountability group, you can get hope, and you can ultimately get healing, which comes from Jesus alone. But you have to share those problems with people, and not keep them inside and pretend like they don't exist, because it just festers, Sean.
well, and Father Troy, who is a great friend of God Squad, has spoken at a number of our conferences. He actually, as part of his story, was led back into seminary by attending a men's conference, and the God Squad men's conference, and he talked on removing those masks,
Yeah,
how men, we all put them on, and it's something that is hard. And as heroic men, we're leaning into that loneliness that you're talking about, that men are feeling in that isolation, and trying to build that brotherhood.
yeah, yeah. Because what happens, Sean? Remember, the the devil knows us by our name, but he calls us by our sins. Jesus knows us by our sin, but he calls us by our name. So we, as men, and I interact on a daily basis now with men from all over the country, helping, some with pornography addictions, and some with alcohol and drug abuse problems, and others that have had abortions or time in the past. And there's a common theme with all of it. It's once you bring those issues to the surface, and once you expose them to the light of Christ, and to seek His mercy. I know it sounds simple and I know it sounds corny, but you've got to bring those issues to the surface. They're not going to heal on their own. Um, they're certainly not going to go away. And but again, as men, Sean, you and I, big, strong, tough guys, we don't want to share our feelings. We don't want to share our weaknesses. But that's really the solution. You know, I'll never forget this, Sean. I was reading a book by Father Henry Nouwen, The Wounded Healer. Somebody had heard one of my talks and they gave me the book. And I looked at the cover of the book and it said, in our woundedness, we can be a source of life or healing for others. And Sean, it took me the better part of 50 years of my life to figure that out. I always thought that I had to put forward this reputation of honorable and full of character and a man of integrity, and then hide all those secrets, the pornography abuse, the alcohol and drug abuse. I always thought I had to hide those. And with Christ and in His ministry and serving Him and his children, I've come to realize that now I share my deepest, darkest secret, Sean. And I can't even begin to tell you. I was on a call last night with a national group that I'm blessed to be part of, speaking to them about a young man who found out that he and his girlfriend were pregnant after listening to one of my talks, and both of their parents wanted them to have an abortion, Sean. But listening to the decision I had made when I was 17 years old, and the pain that I've lived with for decades, they're going to have their baby now. So it's really counterintuitive. Those deep, dark secrets that you keep inside that you want to hide from people, when you bring those to the surface and Christ heals you from them, then when you share them with others, I mean, this is the third time, Sean, that a young man and or a young woman have come forward and have said that they were intending on getting an abortion, but because of listening to my story of pain and suffering, that they decided to keep their baby. So this is God's way of literally saving a human life through someone else's suffering. So it's a real blessing to me. I've been part of the Tampa Men's Conference, planning that for years, and we've had a lot of great speakers, and they'll teach you about Scripture, they'll teach you about the Catechism, they'll teach you about church fathers, and that's all good. We need that, Sean. But I think we need a little bit more of entering into the woundedness of men, because Sean, I've had guys tell me, listen, I go to mass on Sunday, and then 3 hours later, I'm watching child pornography on my computer. How could God love me? And when you hear a man say that to you, Sean, it's like, listen, he loves you because of that. He knows that you're broken. And then we walk through some ways that, you can have accountability software and accountability partners, and you work your way through these issues that affect so many men. But we can't just pretend. We can't use the ostrich approach, Sean, to dealing with our issues. We can't bury our head in the sand and pretend like it's going to go away.
Well, and what you're talking about, I was part of the formation and growth of peer support within the Calgary Police Service, and we're talking about peer support on steroids when you bring Christ into the picture.
Sure.
And but the science is there to back it up too, because as I'm sure you may be aware of, suicide amongst law enforcement is extremely high, and divorce and everything, because of that brokenness and not having an avenue to work through the garbage that they're dealing with. I don't know if you remember the McDonald's massacre in California years ago, but I forget there was 4 or 5 emergency response people that took their own lives
Yeah.
within the first year of that, because they didn't have an avenue to work through these issues. And that's what we're trying to do, is create a support network for men, so that they are not alone, and they have uh, men to walk with them, and not they're not being judged on what they've done, but that image of God that is in them, and each and every one of them.
Yeah, we as men, and I've been in men's ministry now, Sean, for about 17 or 18 years with Paradise Estate, which is the That Manage You program, which is all over North America. Um, and I tell you, the secret sauce with men is when we get in small accountability groups, right? And we can start to share some of that stuff that we're dealing with. Because what happens, Sean, is the enemy wants to tell us, right, that you're the only one that's popping pills every day to get through. You know, you're the only one that's watching pornography on your phone constantly. The devil wants to tell us that. But when you get in these small groups, these accountability groups, and you recognize that there's anonymity there, and you can share with other men, and you start to see that, hey, I'm not alone. You know, I say to people all the time, Sean, that 11 out of 10 men have a problem with pornography. And I get criticized all the time for saying that. What do you mean? It's like, hey, listen, this isn't, I didn't set up the parameters for this. I mean, Jesus said, he who looks upon another woman lustfully has committed adultery in his own heart. That's the sixth commandment, Sean. You know, and so pornography is something that a lot of us struggle with as men. But what I found, what I do, and this is part of the talks that I give, is I recommend, whether it's to the high school kids, the college kids, or to a men's conference with 80-year-old men there, I said, you've got to get Covenant Eyes or Net Nanny on your phone.
Yeah.
You got to have an accountability partner that's built into that software, you know. And what does that mean? For me, if I go look at something I'm not supposed to on my phone or on my computer, you know who gets notified? You know who my accountability partner is, Sean?
Who?
It's my wife. So think about that for a second. A lot of men will probably hear this and they'll say, I could never do that. Well, listen, the person that I have become one with and I'm united with in Christ, I want her to work with me. I want her to know that I have a weakness, which she does, and I want her to be able to help me with that weakness. So, you know, she's my accountability partner. And then the third step is just to pray your way through it.
Yeah.
You know, we think that these thorns in our flesh are God's way of punishing us for our sinful nature. But he wants to walk with us in that sinfulness. I tell people all the time, Sean, I started drinking at 9 years old. I started drinking regularly at 13 years old. Okay. I started doing cocaine at 15. Okay. I was a full blown alcoholic and drug abuser by the time I graduated high school. High school, right? I had 3 DWIs. I flushed an NFL career down the toilet because of my cocaine abuse. You know, and I always thought to myself, Lord, why did you put me through all that crap? Because ultimately, Sean, he takes my history, right? HISTORY, and he turns it into his HIS capital letters TORY, his story of mercy, you know, because that's what I needed in my life. I was broken, even though I got raised in a perfectly fine Catholic Christian family. I made a mess of it. And it didn't take me until unfortunately, it took me until I was 38 years old, Sean, before I realized that I could take all this the whole life of sin and bring it to the Lord, and in an instant He forgave me for it. And then now, Sean, He takes that mess, that giant mess that I made in life, and now He turns it into His message for other men, you know, and women to come out of the darkness of their sin, because my story is a story of His mercy. That's all it is. He doesn't need me. He
Yeah.
just needs somebody to provide a permission slip to other people. I'll tell you this, Sean. Let me tell you this story, because I could tell you stories from a young lady that's 14 years old who decided to keep her baby because she heard my talk, all the way up to the 82-year-old man in Pennsylvania. Okay, I was giving my talk. I spoke about the abortion that I forced my girlfriend to have at 17. And I saw this 82-year-old man, Sean. He was in the front row. And I could see that he was deeply impacted by some part of the story. I didn't know what part of the story it was. But after the talk was over, I tried to outrun him and get back to the ministry room so that I could prepare for the onslaught of people that always come. But this 82-year-old man, Sean, he got up from his seat, he sprinted over, and he literally pinned me up against the wall. And he was crying, he was shaking, and he looked at me and he said, "How could God possibly forgive me for the person that I am?" This is an 82-year-old man now.
Wow.
I know this because he told me later. And I said, "Brother, you just heard my story." And God took a whole life of sin, and in an instant, like an etch-a-sketch, he shook the etch-a-sketch, and the sins were gone. And the man looked at me, Sean, and he said, 62 years ago, 62 years ago, I had an abortion, and I've never gone to confession before. I put my arm around that dude, Sean. I walked him right over. There was a whole line of priests there that were hearing confessions. And that man got set free that day.
Yeah.
But again, it takes men, we want to hold that sin inside, and that's, I think, our biggest mistake. We want to hold it in, we want to suppress it. We think that one day it's just going to go away, and that never works, Sean. Never
Well, and
works.
that's the beauty of the conferences, is that how many men avail themselves of confession, like hearing guys going for the first time in 15 years, 20 years, and it's extremely powerful. And I remember our very first conference, Steve Wood talked about pornography, and out of 250 men that were just good dudes wanting to learn how to be good husbands and fathers, 200 got up to line up for confession. And it was extremely powerful. And I could attest, Covenant Eyes, my son had me as his accountability partner, because he's, when he was a young kid, got on the wrong website, and all of a sudden you get hooked, right? So yeah, it's these are the beauty of what we're trying to do, and seeing God's graces that help you get through those things is incredible. And I'm looking forward to having you up here in Calgary in the extremely near future. Oh, looks like we lost Jeff. Let's hope he comes back. In the meantime, are you, oh, he's back. There he
Yeah,
is.
you dropped me there a second. Yep. Yeah.
That's the first time that's happened to me. But it must be the infrastructure down in the U.S.,
Yeah.
not up here in the great Canadian country of Canada.
The country of
And
Canada.
yeah, yeah, just
Yeah.
we may not have the best leaders.
Well,
Uh,
I think there's a change coming, isn't there? Yeah.
there's a change on the rise, and Actually, if you ever get a chance to watch, Avi Kaplan's got a music video called "Change on the Rise."
Change on the rise.
It's extremely powerful, and we actually used it as part of our theme a couple of years ago. Just it's because you feel the Holy Spirit doing something, like connecting us and connecting men all over North America, raising up these little battalions or whatever you want to call them that are coming together to work in unison is so exciting.
Yeah, no, well, yeah, to see, to it, you can empirically see the need for men to, I said this, just recently. I did a podcast, and I said to the uh, the person who's doing the podcast, I said, the Catholic Church basically fumbled Sunday over to the NFL 30 years ago, right? Because the vast majority of the men that should be sitting in the pews now are parked in front of on their couch watching football from 1 o'clock until 11 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And now they got Monday football, they got Thursday football, they got Saturday football. And I'm not against football. I mean, I was blessed to be as I said before, a two-time preseason All-American. I almost played for the Buffalo Bills. I should have if I didn't have a drug problem. But the point is the vast majority of men, Sean, are sitting on their couches at home watching football for 12 hours on Sunday when they should be sitting next to you and I in the church pews, because I think it was Einstein that said that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. And I did that for a lot of years. Believe me, in my 20s, in my 30s, I would glue myself to the TV and watch NFL all day long. And what did that ever get me? Except, drunk and broke with gambling, because there goes gambling when you're watching sports. You think you're going to know the outcome, but it's great to see across this nation the uplifting of men and men's programs and men's ministries. To get, I always thought I was a good father. I always thought I was a good husband until I realized that the more I developed my relationship with Jesus, the more I know I needed to improve as father, as husband, as business owner. And I'm still improving. I still have a long way to go, but at least I know I'm heading in the right direction, Sean.
Well, and as a dad, we one of the segments that we talk about is a dad dish. So is there a dish that you prepare for the family that they keep coming saying, "Dad, can you do that again?"
I tell you this, Sean. Um, I don't have a lot of talents in life. I don't. I have no idea how God has blessed me the way He has, in the blessings that He's given me. But as far as cooking is concerned, I'm like you. I'm a good eater, but there is nothing that I could cook that my wife or daughter would even think about eating. Never mind any other human being. One thing I am not is a cook. I've done pretty good at eating, Sean, but as far as cooking, I mean, I couldn't cook. There's nothing that I would ever cook that you'd want to eat. Let's put it that way.
Well, maybe when you're up here in Calgary, we can give you some tips
But
and yeah,
well,
take.
believe me, I need all the help I can get because I've never been much of a cook. I had a beloved mother, beautiful mother, who did all the cooking for me when I was prior to 25, and now I have a beautiful wife that's been doing that. So
So you said French and Portuguese. So was there some traditional dish like tourtière, which is French dish that they serve around Christmas? Or
Yeah, the mom side is there's a funny story behind that, but mom that involves ancestry and DNA testing, but we won't. If we want to get into that, we'll get into that. Mom's side is French Canadian. Dad's side is Portuguese. So yeah, the Portuguese, it was more the melaçadas, which is a breakfast food. And then there's cassoulet, which is like a spicy meat. On the French side, it was more like the meat pie stuff, Sean. Nothing
yeah, that's
fancy in the way of dishes on the
that's
French
that's
side.
what tortilla is a meat pie that they traditionally have
And that may have
around
been it.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I know there's a heavy Portuguese influence in Brazil, and I just made a dish for the religious community here called Seeds of the Word, so to make them feel like they're at home. So I made some. It's called feijoada.
Feijoada.
I don't know
Okay.
if it's Portuguese pork and beans, I think.
Porking. Yeah. I tell you, now, what is your background? What are you, um,
Irish, Scottish, uh, some English, but yeah, the Irish was probably the strongest one that
yeah.
Dad promoted. Like my granddad was born in the Irish section of Glasgow, Scotland, and then he was actually part of the army with Michael Collins. His brother was as well, and he was actually killed right around the same time as Michael
Oh, no
Collins
kidding.
in Ireland.
Yeah.
So it's fairly recent, but I'm a I'm a equal opportunity eater and
Yeah.
cooker.
Yeah. Sound,
I like all the foods.
Sounds like you can cook across many nationalities. So God bless you for that talent. I don't have that talent, Sean. I
There you
yeah,
go.
I'm an eater.
So
I'm an eater, not a cooker.
so I know you have a great love for St. Joseph. We've got the Litany of St. Joseph in song coming up, the world premiere here in Calgary on March 17th. What is it about St. Joseph that resonates with you?
Yeah, it's funny. I know that you're going to know where this oil is from. Um,
I just picked up a bunch of it in November.
yep, yep, yep. Yeah, St. Joseph, I say a special prayer to him every morning before my feet hit the ground. Um, his humility, Sean, his receptiveness to God's will, um, the fact that he's silent in Scripture, right? Not a word of his is recorded. Um, it always humbles me when I think about Saint Joseph sitting around the table in Nazareth, okay, and doing the blessing before the food, okay, and holding in his left hand the Son of God's hand, and holding in his right hand the Mother of God's hand, and knowing that he was the spiritual leader of that family, right? That always gets me, and that's why I have such an admiration for Saint Joseph. He helps me to be better husband. He helps me to be a better father. He helps me, my company. You can see a little bit of the JMJ. A lot of people that don't know me that well think that those are my initials as well, Jeff Matthew Joaquin. But my company is named after Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. I've had the company consecrated to the Holy Family, Sacred Heart of Jesus, Immaculate Heart of Mary, Most Chaste Heart of Saint Joseph. So I have a real affinity for Saint Joseph, even in my business, because Saint Joseph is Saint Joseph the worker, right? And I ask him to bless my business and help me to be more charitable in some of the works that we have. For instance, you have a rum from the Philippines. We have a school in the Philippines that that we're blessed to. I mean, we didn't build the school from scratch, but we've built a stone wall around the school because the kids would get attacked by animals. We put a drinking well in the school. We built a library and put a couple thousand books in it. We've put air conditioning in every room. Um, they had a typhoon a couple years ago, Sean, that wiped out half of the school. We rebuilt that school. You know, my company did. So, you know, through Joseph's eyes, it's given me a better perspective on what it really means to serve the poor. And so, yeah, my affinity and affection for Saint Joseph, or I could go on for hours.
Yeah.
He is. We need a lot more men need to employ a lot more of his silent humility in his leading by example. Um, you know, the unthinkable task that God gave him to raise the Holy Family as a mortal human being, and so you know he is he. I have great affinity for Saint Joseph, and maybe not as great as Saint Andre Bessette, whose feast day was a week ago, but
Yeah, Monday.
yeah, I certainly have a great love and affection for Saint Joseph.
That thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I was at the bishop's funeral here last month, and Bishop Emeritus, and got thinking about what readings I want at my funeral, and what came to me was on a couple of occasions it's he got up and did the will of God. Like he didn't say anything, he just did the will of God. And that's what my hope is. And I want to thank you for coming to the pub. Hopefully we can do this again. Maybe we can do it live and in person when you're here. But thank you for all you're doing. And a couple of the things we're going to talk offline, because I think God's moving, and well, I know He is. And so the term whiskey in Gaelic is Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And my prayer is that you continue to lead many souls to the true water of life, and God bless you and your ministry.
Thank you, brother. It's been an honor to join you, and and I know we had a technical difficulty there, but I'm sure the good Lord will work through that. So pleasure to join you. It's an honor to serve Him through the least, the last, and the lost, and all credit and all glory goes to Him.
Amen.
God bless you, brother.
I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. Like and subscribe. Go to all podcast platforms to look for it on podcast, or go to godsquad.ca to support our mission.